You know what I really didn't want to do? I really didn't want to do a video about Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks because I believe that he's probably just making shock content for the purpose of getting people to talk about him because the Young Turks are losing relevance. I take a look at their YouTube channel and they have huge thumbs down. They don't get that many views. They were relevant a while ago. I'll explain a little bit and more, but here's the story. Young Turks host Cenk Uygur goes ballistic over Joe Rogan's use of the word groomer. You disgust me. Not only is Cenk Uygur wrong about everything he said, he then goes on to accuse Joe of being attracted to trans people, and then he asks for trans people who have slept with Joe to step forward. And it's just a weird Joe's married and he has kids. But I think, first of all, Joe was completely correct. Joe said that their teachers have been arrested for doing messed up stuff in front of kids and things like that. It takes you 2 seconds to Google it. And there's actually a ton of stories about teachers who do abusive stuff. The idea was that Joe was defending the word groomer, the use of the word groomer against groomers. And grooming does happen in schools. Now, I'm not here to play any stupid tribal games. Let's stop for a second. I don't care for this. Grooming is also political. Yeah. Grooming. You're trying to befriend a child and you're trying to make the child do something you want them to do. But typically grooming is about adult activities. Let's be real. In schools, they're actually grooming kids. We had a detransitioner, Helena Kirshner, on Timcast IRL, who explained how she actually was groomed into becoming a trans man online. What happens is you go on the internet, someone says, maybe you're trans and you're a young kid, you're 13, you have no idea. And they say, why don't you get a short haircut and see what you think? And maybe you won't like it and your hair will grow back. No big deal. She gets a short haircut and then all of a sudden everyone online is like, you look amazing. Oh, you're so handsome. And then you feel good. It feels good inside to have all that praise. Then they ask you, how do you feel? Do you feel good? And they go, yeah, I feel great. Maybe you want to be a boy. Do more. That's grooming. Incrementally pushing someone. Now, in the context of the physical realm, you could have something like a teacher saying, hey, we're having study group. Do you mind if your kids come to study group? And they're like, okay, sure. And then once the adult has the kids in private, they go, don't tell your parents what we're going to talk about. But who do you want to be with physically like an adult? Tell me. You think I'm making that up? I've got a story. I've got the evidence. So Joe Rogan calls it out. Cenk Uygur does his performative shtick where he screams about it and says, give me one story, Joe. I ignored this for the most part. And I was just like, dude, I really just can't stand the strange world of drama. You want to know what I was doing before this stupid story pops up in my feed? I'm looking at the music that we're working on. I'm trying to be a positive influence in culture to inspire kids to do things that are good and productive. So we've got some music coming out. I was listening to the final mix of a song we've just finished called Bright Eyes, thinking about the music video we're going to do for it. And that's what I care about. I care about building culture and talking about these issues because I care about the world and I care about where we're going. And my vision of a future is like Star Trek: The Next Generation. Oh, I love it. Not that I actually think any of that stuff's really going to happen. I mean, some of it has come true. Yelling computer and then having something talk to you, that happens. Sometimes annoyingly, while I'm recording, the robot will start talking. Well, that's life. So when I saw this viral, there's a trend on Twitter about Cenk Uygur doing his performative outrage. And then I was just like, I'm not going anywhere near that. I don't care. I've got some stories about diesel shortages. And then finally, I was just like, I think that's what needs to be called out. What needs to be called out is that Cenk Uygur is just making things up, is that Anna Kasparian and Cenk have decided to just make things up. It is not often that I talk about people like Ethan Klein or Cenk Uygur, sometimes, but it's usually not in the context of what they're doing or saying. It's in the context of something happening around them. I don't like drama YouTube, and I like to have things be about political issues. Okay. I think we need to call out the manipulation machine that keeps people locked in a broken mental state. That's what the Young Turks are doing. They want to be rich, they want to make money, so they lie. Now, of course, they'll accuse me of doing the same thing, but I bring the receipts in every single article I do. So all of my sources, 99%, are certified by NewsGuard. NewsGuard, of course, I think is biased in favor of the establishment, but I use them for that reason. And that's why my face is in this little box and the article is bigger. I want you to see what I'm basing my opinions off of. In order to accuse me of being a liar, often what the people, these leftists will do is they'll clip just this little box so you can't actually see I'm talking about an article. So then when they share it with many of these people on the left, they just see me talking and they don't get the greater context. Well, there's nothing you can do for the most part other than maybe just not show your face at all. But let's talk about the cultural issues we face. Why Joe Rogan is a good dude, why Cenk Uygur is a bad dude, and the reality. The reason why I really want to talk about this is Cenk Uygur, prominent voice, is not getting as much traffic as he used to, but he's defending grooming and the abuse of children to make money. That's it. If you're someone who says grooming is bad, what harm are you doing? Now, if there was somebody who was like, they wanted to pretend that grooming was an issue and they didn't think it was real to make money, what's the outcome? Stranger danger? Parents might be concerned about what's going on with their kids. I guess teachers could be demonized. It's not a good thing if you're lying about it. What's the outcome if Cenk Uygur lies about this? Groomers will prey upon children with impunity. Let me show you the truth. Let me show you reality, all right? Young Turks host Cenk Uygur goes ballistic over Joe Rogan's use of the word groomer. You disgust me. On Thursday's episode of The Young Turks, a video clip of Rogan was played from a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience where he said the term groomer. A lot of people don't like that term online. They're very upset, but they're real. They are groomers. I would just like to point out the hilarity of Joe Rogan saying a thing that gets responded to by the Young Turks, that gets responded to by Tim Pool. And it's just like, this is why I don't like doing segments like this. But I want to take this opportunity to back up what Joe was saying, because I'm going to take a pause. When I was on Joe's show, I said most of the country was constitutional carry, and Joe said he didn't believe me. Jamie pulled up an incorrect source, and I said, I guess I'm wrong. So I don't like that. I like having the sources pre-polled when I make those points, and that's why we'll address what Joe said. This is what they wrote. They said, not all teachers are groomers, but a lot of groomers are teachers. And that's real. That's a real effing problem. I mean, constantly teachers are getting arrested for exposing themselves to children, for, jerking it in front of children, sending nude pictures in front of children. Every couple of days, there's a new one that pops up in the news. And how many of those people haven't been caught yet? And how many of those people are out there? And how many of those people are doing it under the guise of I'm an LGBTQ educator? Uygur then reacted to Joe's comments made about the teachers allegedly acting inappropriately in front of students. Quote, do they, Joe? Do they? Show me one story where that happened. When a teacher masturbated in front of a class and they said, it's okay, I'm LGBTQ, and they weren't fired. And they said, it's okay, he's LGBTQ. Show me one story, you effing liar. That never happened, Uygur yelled. By the way, I know for a fact that the great majority of child abusers, whether they're in schools or not, in the churches, are straight. First, I'd like to address the straw man that Cenk brings up. Joe said that there are people getting arrested for doing something in front of kids. Full stop. True. He then said, there are people doing it under the guise, I'm an LGBTQ educator. Personal opinion. We have seen stories of people grooming, like this one, for instance. Furious Colorado teacher invites schoolgirl 12 to after-school art club that was actually a meeting about trans and queer identity. Kids were asked who they were sexually attracted to and told it's okay to lie to your parents. That's grooming. That does not mean that they are physically abusing the kids. It means they are grooming the kids to adopt a certain behavior, typically sexually. That's grooming. Now, Cenk Uygur does this semantic game where he's probably going to use this argument where they did this in front of a kid and then said, it's okay, he's LGBTQ. No one's ever made that claim, that these two extremes were mashed together. The claim is that teachers, under the guise of being LGBTQ, will try to groom children. If you want to talk to kids about LGBTQ issues, I think that's an issue for the parents, and they can sign a permission slip and they can choose for their kids to learn these things. But why ask the kids about the child's personal sexual attraction? Why tell the kids to lie to your parents? It's because they're grooming. And what they're doing is they're like, oh, it was an LGBTQ thing. And they're getting away with it. So Cenk Uygur has created a straw man argument. All right, I'll now show you this story, and not for the faint of heart. Teacher arrested after cranking it in front of students. I mean, seriously, this is January 9th, 2019. You can just take a quick Google search and you can see Georgia teacher arrested after she was caught in front of kids. And that's a woman. Substitute teacher caught March 16, 2020. These are different stories. Ohio teacher accused, the Nutley teacher. Nutley, wow, what a city name. So Joe Rogan says something. Cenk Uygur takes it out of context and gives you this insane scenario that's the most extreme possible, where someone cranks it in front of kids, claims they're LGBTQ, and then all of a sudden is never in trouble. Well, of course, that's not happening. That's psychotic. That's a fantasy that no one's complained about. Joe was literally talking about people expose themselves in front of kids. They get arrested. How many of these people are out there, and how many of them are doing it under the guise of I'm an LGBTQ educator? Well, I showed you grooming was happening. That's what Rogan was referring to, grooming. And Rogan's also expressed there are extreme circumstances. He continued to say, are you really concerned about the kids, or are you more concerned about smearing LGBTQ? Okay, blah, blah, blah. You take a look. I mean, so let's break down the nature of the online wars. Cenk himself tweeted the article out. Young Turks host Cenk goes ballistic over Joe Rogan's use of the word groomer. You disgust me. You see, there are a lot of people that will take clips from me out of context. Because it's a money-making game. They'll act like they're justified, that they're doing good and doing the right thing, but they're taking things out of context for the sake of making money. They'll accuse me of doing the same thing. The other day, I was talking about Joe Biden being slammed by Republicans for ending oil and gas leases. On 2 shows, we said the oil industry wasn't using the leases. I think the issue is leadership. Joe Biden should call together the leaders of industry, and he should say, what can we do to get more drilling? Will Chamberlain said, I think in the instance of Alaska, it really was the oil industry wasn't getting anything done because the Biden administration definitely wants gas prices to go down. Hey, that's nuance. That's us not just simply being like, Joe Biden's bad, period. No matter what, there's no context. There are court rulings that ended oil and gas leases. I think the issue is this wouldn't happen under Trump. It would be different, but it's not like it's entirely everything always going to be Joe Biden's fault. We need to understand the nuance. I think what Cenk Uygur does is he doesn't care for nuance. He doesn't want to look up whether teachers have been arrested for doing. Is Joe correct? Joe is correct. He was. He asked a question. How many people are doing it under the guise of being LGBT? Maybe 0. We do know there's at least some grooming. This is the problem. One of the biggest challenges we face. I have no interest in getting into these stupid, fake, performative political debates. I don't. I invite people to come on Timcast IRL for a discussion. The left won't do it. Cenk won't do it. Anna won't do it. Hassan won't do it. Tons of leftists won't do it. We're having a couple leftists coming on in the next week, actually, because I'm interested in having a real conversation. It probably will deviate away from news topics we normally comment on when we get into these arguments, because typically you'll see, like, if I had Cenk Uygur on IRL, he'd say, this didn't happen. I'd be like, here's a story where a teacher was arrested. And he'd be like, well, but what about under the guise of being LGBTQ? I would just say, well, Joe said how many? Is your answer 0? Okay, moving on. Here's a story about one teacher grooming kids. Let me show you this story. February 19th, 2020. Grooming, what parents should know and what schools should do if they suspect it. They say this week's ABC Four Corners exposed an elite Melbourne school for failing to adequately respond to the grooming of a student by a former athletics coach who is now a convicted offender. So this is in Australia, mind you, not in the United States, because this is an Australian website. But I just think, our cultures are similar. We have similar European roots. I just pulled this one up at cursory search. These things happen. They happen then, they happen now. So let's see if the ABC, I don't even know if the story is loading. Here we go. Principal of St. Kevin's regrets writing reference for convicted offender. A top Catholic school accused of culture of cover-up has received reports of inappropriate behavior. So prior to his actions, Mr. Keno had no prior charges on any student or parent or complaint or blah, blah, blah. So these things happen. All right. Of course they happen. Of course we know they happen. Cenk Uygur tweeted this out. He wants you to see what he said. When people take things out of context for me, I ignore them because they're out of context. They're not real arguments. When Cenk Uygur posts this and says, this is my argument, I say, okay, let's address the argument. How can we explain to people that people like Cenk Uygur are faking it? The challenge is that people like Cenk Uygur are claiming that we're faking it. You know what I'm working on right now? Timcast is working on a video game where it's like in a skyscraper and you're making your way to the bottom floors and you have like a hard hat. And it's a fun little video game. And there's some like political jokes in it. It's like political satire. But the game itself is, it's not political. It's just, you're making your way down a skyscraper. We made a fun game. Recording music. I don't want to spend my time pretending to be angry at Joe Rogan or Cenk Uygur or whatever. You know, I think it's all fake. I think all of it is fake. And I wonder, you know, how much on the left is fake? How much on the right is fake? I think a lot on the right is fake. I really, really do. I hear people, like when Jen Psaki first got hired, they were like, oh, they're making fun of her. They're insulting her. They're calling her, what did they call her? Pepper Ann? They call her Pepper Ann. No, they didn't call her Pepper Ann. They called her, I don't know what they called her. Because I don't care. The ginger something. I don't know. She got red hair. Peppermint Patty. That's what it was. Not Pepper Ann. Although I think Pepper Ann would work because Pepper Ann also had red hair. Anyway, I was just like, why is everybody making fun of Jen Psaki? I don't know her. I don't care. She wore a communist hat one time. Okay, whatever. She's a press secretary. Sure, I guess. She's going to spin things for the White House. Fine, whatever. I don't care. There have been certain things I think she's done that are worthy of criticism. But I just see people like ragging on her for the sake of ragging on her. And I'm like, why? Now you've got this new press secretary and all these stories coming out about how she's, you know, she's black and she's a lesbian. And I'm like, I literally don't care. I don't get it. Now, there are people who have criticized her because they were like, her qualifications are, you know, that's why they hired her. And I'm like, literally don't care. Like, what, you know, does Sean Spicer have qualifications? Did Sarah Huckabee Sanders have qualifications? I don't know, whatever. I really don't care. Political individuals hire people for political reasons and give them positions. And it's like, whatever. You had the people in the media, like, here's what I think is fair. When they said this new press secretary, who's black and gay, is like the first black or gay administration official or whatever, and everyone's like, dude, Donald Trump had, Grinnell was his name, right? Sorry for forgetting your name. Like, there have been people, you know, and like even before her, you've got Buttigieg. I have no problem people bringing that up and criticizing it. What I just don't like is criticizing people in like being derisive towards someone just because they're there. Nah, I don't want to do that. You know what's going to happen? I learned this lesson when I was 16. I remember hanging out with my friends and we were like watching some online videos. And then I was watching stuff and I thought it was cool if I just insulted these people. And I was like, look how dumb they are. They're so stupid. I'm so much smarter than them. And then I ended up meeting these people. And I was like, I feel really bad for saying that because they were like nice people. And I was just being insulting for no reason. So I remember at Politicon a few years ago, I saw Cenk Uygur. He started screaming at me, just screaming at the top of his lungs for no reason. I mean, these people are genuinely bad people. The Young Turks had put out a fake video. They put out fake news. And I was like, I was standing next to Cenk because I've known him for years. I've been on his show. At VidCon, we shake hands. How's it going, man? How are you? And then I was like, hey, man, I want to talk to you real quick. You guys put up a video about, you know, this fake report. You put my name in it. And then he's like, started yelling at me. And I was like, why are you yelling at me? I don't understand what's going on. I said, hey, if you've got beef with Dave Rubin, like, leave me out of it. That's what it was. They're mocking Dave Rubin. They made a video and they put my name in it or whatever. Like, because the report had my name in it and they're showing it. And I'm like, the report's not real. Like, you don't got to drag me because you don't like Dave Rubin. I got no beef with that, with the Young Turks. And he screams at me over it. It's performative. The media runs in. BBC film crew is filming everything. And then they're like, here's the story. And I'm like, the dude is a performance artist. I wonder if it's because they're not relevant anymore. You know, here's one video. They made a video about Bill Maher and student loan relief. And it's like 1,200 thumbs up, 700 thumbs down. You've got this one, white nationalist incel, and it's more than 50% thumbs down. You've got this one, rising sea level change. Okay, this one's only about 12% thumbs down. But like, even their segment talking about a house getting washed away, people are thumbs downing. I think, here's what I'll tell you what I think happened. Here's one where Anna Kasparian is making fun of Dave Rubin, and this one's about, 30 or so percent thumbs down. I'll tell you what I think happened with the Young Turks. I think they used to be legit. I really do. I think that when Donald Trump got elected, they didn't know what to do. Populists that they had supported for a long time, that they claimed to have been, were now on the side of Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders supporters jumped ship. They said, I'm not voting for Hillary, I'm voting for Trump. I went to the Deplorable, funny name, right? And some people I met there, this is 2017 or whatever. And they were like, hey, we're big fans. This is before I had my YouTube channel. It's before I had the YouTube channel, but it was like empty. And they were like, hey, we're big fans. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, we were at Occupy Wall Street. And I was like, and you're Trump supporters? Like, of course. And like, here's why. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. I'll take a look at, you take a look at me. I have changed some positions. Second Amendment, I'm a two-way absolutist for the most part now. I've become actually more lax on free speech to a certain degree because the slippery slope of, who gets to deem what is illegal speech. But I'm still very much, there should be some restrictions, I suppose, like direct threats. But for the most part, my policies have basically stayed the same. I had a guy from Occupy and he was like, you would be cheering for these nonviolent protests 10 years ago. What happened? Because I said arrest the people at the SCOTUS homes. And I'm like, dude, you're making that up. You all changed. I didn't. I think if you engage in nonviolent civil disobedience, you get arrested. I think it's wrong for police to say, that's a frozen zone, we're going to arrest you. Making stuff up. But I think if you're blocking a street, you get arrested. I think if you're running around knocking garbage cans over, you get arrested. I think if you violate federal statutes by going in front of a judge's home to influence the court, you get arrested. And you get a slap on the wrist. But these people all changed. And what happened is, I think they've driven themselves off a cliff. They've become they've chased after this fake narrative, this fake reality. They think that they're speaking to the popular base, but they're not. Regular people are probably closer to my views than their views. How do they survive this? Well, they lie. They claim I'm far right or conservative or whatever. Even though I have tons of left policy positions, doesn't matter. If you definitively state that Joe Biden is crooked and we show the evidence on Ukraine, you're right wing. And people who are entrenched in this world can't see through the fire. They only see the fire. So what people like Cenk have to do is, in order to maintain the zombification of their audience, if people in their audience actually learned the truth, they'd flee. They'd be like, I can't believe I ever believed this stuff. So they need to keep making lies, straw man arguments. They do it to me all the time. But I'm not wrong. I was right about the Covington kids. And it's not like I'm some prophet or anything. I get predictions wrong all the time. But when the Covington kid thing happened, Nick Salmon on the steps, I was like, I don't understand why everyone's mad. They're all freaking out and screaming. And I was like, I'm not going to get mad at these kids. People are like, yo, did you see these kids? You got to talk about this. And I was like, why? I don't get it. Why were so many people, like even on the right, were like, dude, talk about this. What's going on with this? And I was like, I don't know what happened. Let me find some evidence and we'll figure out what the story's about. Turns out I was right. I made a video early on, ended up getting like 600,000 views or something. Back when my channel only got like 50 to 100,000. Now it's like twice that, but whatever. Jussie Smollett called it out. The Ahmaud Arbery, all of it. With the George Floyd stuff, I was very much in agreement with the left, as most people were. But when we get facts and we call it out, we're right. I'm not right about everything. I can just follow the news and I can do the fact checking. If you watch my content and you see something that is overtly factually wrong, I often will correct these things. The reason I say often is because sometimes I don't see them. We have a very strict correction policy over at Timcast. The Young Turks have posted lies over and over again. One video they made, I was talking about how conservatives are more attractive on average than liberals. Multiple studies have confirmed this. And they took that segment, called me ugly, and then confirmed I was correct. And it's the weirdest thing. I'm like, why are you mad at me? Performative outrage. They agreed with the premise because I was just reading studies. I was actually talking about the idea of privilege, that attractive people have more access and thus become more independent, and uglier people become collectivist. Literally the idea of attraction and privilege. But they have to hate me. This is why people like Cenk won't come on IRL. It's why Hassan Piker won't come on IRL. If Hassan actually came on Timcast IRL, he would either be proven wrong on key facts, or he would completely agree with what we were saying. Because, I mean, look at Ian. Like, we argue all the time. Ian is not some conservative. They have to pretend to hate the show. They have to pretend to hate us. It is performative. I can criticize tons of people on the right all day, every day. I recently talked about Jack Posobiec because he posted a clip of Nina Jankowicz playing guitar and singing. And I said, Jack, this ain't it. I don't like this. It's not cool. Jack still comes on the show. We still talk to each other. It's whatever. I don't think Jack is right about everything. And I don't think he's a perfect person. I don't think I am either. Why can't we have that same level of disagreement or conversation with people like Cenk and the Young Turks? We have a whole class of people, many on the left, some on the right. It's performative outrage, and they're dragging all of us down. I'm not perfect. I get angry too, and I yell, same as him, and I can be wrong. But I always make sure that we have facts. So you know what? You want to know what you'll see? If you go to Timcast, you become a member at timcast.com, you will see me yelling at my own news team because they didn't source the claims they had made, and I debunked it in real time. I'll get mad, but I want facts. I want evidence. They just present lies. Ultimately, the point is, your kids are getting groomed at these schools. Please look into it. Don't just take Cenk's word for it. Don't take my word for it. Google any of it. Do the research, and you will see which one of us is telling the truth. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.